Okay, so here we are. We're back. Hopefully it wasn't too long for everybody, but today we're going to be updating the firmware on our original Prusa i3 MK2. Man, I've said that a lot, that whole name. But we're going to be updating our firmware to the latest version today. But real quick first, we're going to be pulling all these pieces off the print bed. Let me turn my second cam on here. As you can see, this is some stuff that printed last night. I wanted to print a bunch of things, obviously, but I also wanted to try covering the entire print bed just to make sure that this filament was printing okay. I was having some issues with it, adjusting the temperature settings and stuff, and this is a atomic filament, gunmetal gray, PLA, and apparently this filament prefers much higher temperatures than the other PLA I have, so it took me a little while to actually get the temperature settings right. And it's not perfect. I've got a few very minor little kind of bumps on some of these, but overall it prints really well, holds detail well. I'm happy with it. I think it was $30 US for the roll. I'll put a link in the description. But first we're going to do that because I've gotten better at taking things off the print bed, especially large flat pieces, because they can really grab hold of the PEI sheet. And I was really nervous sometimes pulling some of the pieces off. This thing was one of them. That's like an 8-inch circle that's absolutely flat and solid on the bottom. So we'll go ahead and do that. I had pried one off already, but there's definitely kind of an art to pulling things off, especially big pieces. This piece is a good for instance. This is a from the site Printable Scenery. You can actually purchase these files, and this is part of a pipeline, a Gothic pipeline thing for wargaming that I'm going to be printing and finishing. Actually, I ended up making it slightly smaller scale, but this is in the same gray. Printed great, details good. But this was pretty tough to get off the print bed. Man, this thing adhered well, especially since this PLA likes hotter temperatures. And we'll go ahead and peel these off. But the basic idea is that you want to just put a little bit of pressure on one of the edges. And like for me, you can instantly see almost as soon as you touch the edge that the very edge will kind of just lightly peel off the bed. And once you've done that, that's all you really need to do with your prying piece. Because like I bought a putty knife and ended up scratching my PEI sheet the first couple times I used it. So I actually took some really fine grit sandpaper and finished the edges so it's not actually sharp, so it's a little bit harder for me to mar the surface. But once you see the very edge kind of like on this dark PLA, you can see it lighten a bit as soon as it pulls away from the bed. Then all you really want to do is apply, like with this piece, I grabbed it basically like this and just applied pressure away from that point that started peeling. And a lot of times it won't seem like it's coming off, but just put that kind of, not too hard, but firm pressure on and just keep it on there for a couple seconds. And like this piece, after 5 or 6 seconds, you could just feel it like slowly, very slowly release its grip, and then it'll kind of pop off all at once. But with a piece like this, like you're able to get so much leverage on it that I think you could easily just bend the shit out of your print bed and stuff if you'd start really like yanking on it. So I thought some of these pieces would be good examples. Let me move it over here. Like this piece in the back is I would say approximately 3x5. It's about the size of a 3x5 note card or something. But all we want to do, if you can see this, let me turn my mic. Hopefully it doesn't make too much noise. We want to take this and take the sharp edge and just very gently press, like rock against the edge there, and maybe pry up a tiny little bit. And like there, I know it's hard to see, but the very edge of this piece lightened a little bit. And now I know that if I just apply a tiny little bit of pressure, like I really don't need to work it too hard, and it starts. And you can hear it kind of like It sounds like pulling tape off of something a little bit, and then it'll kind of pop and come off. But we don't want to be like scraping in here. Like I've seen people really damage their print surfaces by being aggressive with these scrapers. You just want to kind of press it against, make sure it like bites a tiny little bit, and then just use it to lift just a little bit. And that piece will like start. There it went. And then as soon as you get it started a little bit, I'd put your tool down so you don't risk damaging your bed, and actually just pull it off with your fingers. And you see some of these pieces you can actually just grab a hold of if you actually have enough. You're just trying to focus your pressure on one side to get it started. See, that piece grabbed pretty good. Just a little bit of pressure. We don't want to like flex our heat bed too much. But same thing here. Just a little bit of pressure. It gets started, and then you can use your fingers to just like put pressure on it. And once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy. Like, I think I could take all kinds of stuff off here now without damaging my PEI. But same deal. Don't rush it. Just kind of get the corner. That one's... I'm kind of at an awkward angle here. Nope. See, that's really what you don't want to be doing, is actually using your thing in there, because there I didn't damage it, but you can see where my my tool rubbed against the sheet a little bit. So we'll just get all the rest of these off of here. But yeah, I kind of wanted to help save people from damaging their heat beds, because I have seen pictures of people that have done that, and I was well on my way to doing it at first before I kind of took a chill pill and was a little more patient with things. But like this big piece here before, I would have really struggled with that. But now it's just moderate pressure, and then just keep that pressure on for a couple seconds, and like you can hear the piece slowly letting go. And I'm not increasing the pressure, it's just kind of like working on its own. Just slowly releasing. There it goes. But you can see that's a fairly big piece. That's a cool piece too. These are called greebles. They're for putting on, like if you make a relatively plain, flat building, you can put these on and paint them up, and it adds like a bunch of detail and stuff. This is kind of like a sci-fi door and bulkhead and stuff. But we'll just get the rest of these off, and then we'll get onto the firmware here. Because some of these, this piece especially, being that we have this relatively robust outer area and then a relatively thin area, you can actually see light through that a little bit. I don't know if you can see that, but I can see light through that inner crack there because it's thin. I think you could break a piece like that if you go prying on it too much. Alright, pieces like this are pretty easy. They don't really grab a hold too much because they don't really have that much surface area. But there we go. No damage to the bed. No damage to the pieces. And that's exactly what you want. But let's get these out of here. Okay, so that's straightforward. I just thought that was a tip worth sharing with everybody, because I think you could easily kind of get away from yourself and end up scratching your sheet. So we'll go ahead and wipe this down. Again, I'm still using these crazy dusty paper towels. I haven't gotten any microfiber cloths yet. Definitely on my to-do list. Okay. And we'll just clean this up. You'll also notice like I've seen it with some of the prints that really stick. You'll kind of get light marks, like it'll look like your bed is lightening a little bit around the edges of some of the prints that stick harder. And I think that's actually the PEI sheet just lifting a little bit because of the I want to say suction, but that's not the right word. But I think it actually lifts a little bit, and it doesn't seem to be a problem because, like around some of these big square flat pieces, you can see like the PEI pulled up a tiny little bit, but generally as soon as you heat the bed again and start another print, it'll kind of like it'll be all right. I think that helps like re-adhere it to the actual heat bed. Okay, so now on to the main show. This is plugged in, so we'll go ahead and turn it on, I believe. It's funny, I had printed out the firmware upgrade instructions, but I think they're upstairs. Hopefully this works. OBS, if you've ever watched a streamer, OBS can be incredibly quirky. But we're going to try to do this for you. First we need our files. And I'll pull the... Unfortunately, my main 1080p display, it won't actually capture for some reason, and I don't have time to mess with it today. So I'm using my one of my older secondary monitors that's 1024 by 1280, something like that. So we'll pull this up here, and this is the page you're greeted with when you go to the Prusa site. This is their main page, and what we want to do is go up here to support, and to drivers, firmware, and manuals, and go ahead and click on that. And you see, this could be organized in a better way, I think, because I was having trouble finding the driver package and the slicer installation because they're all integrated into one file, and it wasn't like super obvious to me when I looked the first time. So we want to come down here. You see we have drivers, manuals, others, and then firmware. And you can see this firmware just came out on October 21st, so it's brand new basically. So we'll go ahead and click that, download it. And I already downloaded it, but we'll go ahead and let it finish here. It's only like 60 megabytes. And I have not done this upgrade yet, so we're going to go through this together. Because I have seen... I think Joseph in chat said he was having issues with upgrading his firmware, so we'll kind of go through this together. And you can see it opens up our zip file, and we'll actually just copy this to our desktop. And there's a number of ways you can do that, and just use your method of choice. So, copied it to our desktop, and I'll bring that over here. So we have our folder. And what do we have in here? It looks like we have another zip folder with our firmware updater. I guess we have a PDF here. We can go ahead and look at this together. Okay. Filament type. So it looks like we have two options for a firmware. We have the... Basically, we have an MK2 and an MK1 option and a 3mm option, which I guess is deprecated or not used anymore. So we're going to be going with the MK2. It looks like there's two versions of Rambo board, but I would assume, like, I can recognize this already. This is the one that I have because mine doesn't have this odd little port on it. So we're going to be using the 1.3A Rambo board, I would assume, for most users. And I think most of the new users should have this hot end, the E3D V6 full. But again, with all this stuff, I would do your best to double check. I don't really know exactly how you'd be able to double check that. Maybe check your invoice or like the paperwork you were provided with your printer. It would likely say on there. But I would assume most of the new users will be using the this one here, the full. So I guess that's all we need in that file. So it looks like we have a folder with our actual firmware files in, and then we're supposed to be using this program here, which again will unzip to our desktop here. Since I'm on Windows 10 here, I don't know if that makes any difference. I think Joseph in chat that said he was having issues was using Windows 7. So hopefully it's backwards compatible, but I don't know for a fact that it is. Okay, so we have our files here. Again, kind of no README. It's part of the reason I wanted to make a video on this. So it looks like we're just going to be using this program here. And while that starts up, we'll go ahead and fire our printer up. And everything's normal as usual. And it's asking us to run this file. Okay. Let me clean this up here. So we have this program, Firmware Updater version 2. So I guess first we'll choose our file, which will be in this folder, I assume. So we'll have to navigate to that. It's on our desktop. In this folder, in the MK2 folder. And like we said, I believe we're on the 1.3a E3D V6 full hot end. So for most new users, it should be this second one here. And I would assume it's important that we get the right one. So make sure, just double and triple check that you're getting the right file. Okay, see, I think this is the place where... Let me move this over here. I think this is the place where people were having an issue, because I was curious about this too. Most computers don't have actual serial ports anymore. So I assume... I would assume this works with a USB. So I have my USB plug here on a long-ass cable over my computer. And we'll go ahead and plug this in. And you see my computer acknowledged it. And we'll just hit rescan to see what it comes up with here. And you can see now that we did a rescan and plugged that in that it's showing us COM port 3. So I would assume that's the one we're supposed to use. So if you haven't tried that, Joseph, I might try doing that. Do a scan without the USB and then connect your USB and rescan. And if it adds a port, I would assume that's the one that you just connected. And again, we don't really have instructions here, so I assume we just update. And like I said in the other video, hopefully we're not about to make a very expensive, very heavy paperweight here, but hopefully this is all it takes. It doesn't, I don't see anything happening. But there is if you go on the Prusa site, right under where we downloaded the firmware files, they did list the changes that have been made, and it didn't seem like anything significant. It seemed like some minor UI improvements and stuff like that. So I don't know that there was any like real performance changes in this firmware update, but I could be wrong. But even if there's not, generally it's a good idea. It's a good idea to update. Spike's telling me to check the... Our LCD did just flash off, and it appears that it updated successfully, so... let me see if we can check the firmware version in the UI. Okay, so it says our firmware is at 3.09, and let's double check the site, and we'll see if that was what we just updated to. Oh, it's not in my favorites. So the new version is 3.0.9. So it appears to have updated correctly. So I believe that's it. I think now we do have to do our calibrations again, if I understand what I had read before. So we'll go ahead and close this, and let's see. I think we'll go ahead and preheat. Go ahead and preheat for PLA, so that's ready. And then I believe, maybe someone in chat can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we have to do our XYZ calibration and the V2 calibration live Z adjustment again, because I think it resets all that. And I'm also going to remove my USB cable, just so if my computer decides to freak out, it's not going to affect the printer. But does anyone in chat know that, if we have to redo the XYZ calibration? Because I think I remember seeing that on Joe Prusa's post in the official group. Or I could be wrong. Maybe that was only the live Z adjustment that needs redone. But we'll go ahead and do that. Because it doesn't hurt to redo the calibration. I also saw that apparently it's supposed to save that info. If I understand correctly, before, because I did this mistake if you watched the video, before, if you do the XYZ and then reset the printer in any way, it doesn't save the calibration information, so you have to redo it. So we'll go ahead and do this. And I don't know if you can see that. Let me adjust the settings on this camera a little bit. That's hard to see. I know that looks dark, but it's kind of hard to capture something bright like an LCD. So if you just go in here to calibration, you can do the self-test. Again, it doesn't hurt to do any of these. That'll just make sure all your components are connected and functioning. But we'll do... See, this is one of the changes it makes. I think it changed the text on this screen. But you just want to use your knob here in small increments. Don't go turning it like crazy until your carriage here bottoms out on these top pieces. And we're right before, and when it gets up there, you'll hear the motors actually skipping steps. And just do it until you hear both motors making that noise. Please clean the nozzle, and we do have some filament oozing out, so we'll just grab that little bit there. And it's just confirming that our axes are up, or the carriages, I'm sorry. And then it'll kind of do its thing. And you can hear, I'm sure you can hear that, the Z-axis bearing's making a little bit of noise still. But I kind of feel like a dummy after doing the upgrade on the other bearings that I didn't just go ahead and do these while I had the machine disassembled. So let me point the mic away from that so it's not obnoxiously loud. I'll kind of move away from it a little bit. Yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, more accurate calibration is always better. Someone in chat said that they had someone create a better calibration kind of print. But, I mean, realistically, you can use any print to calibrate. Like that print that I took off at the beginning of this video would probably be good for calibration because it's a huge flat print that's going to cover most of the bed with that first layer. Because even just modifying the calibration that they have, if it just gave you more time to adjust the Z-axis with the live adjust, it would be kind of handy. Because as far as I know, that's just a regular G-code file that they use for that. But yeah, this will take a minute, so sorry if this part of the video is boring. I guess we could talk here for a minute. This is something I wanted to have in the other video that I did, but being that the channel is growing so fast, probably when we hit, I would say like 250 or so, I'm going to do a giveaway of some kind, because I do kind of want to, like, you know, give back to people for coming and checking out and subbing and stuff. So if you guys have any advice or anything you'd like to see me give away, maybe some cool small prints you've seen on the internet somewhere that you'd like to have one of and you don't have a printer yourself, maybe something like that, I'd gladly mail some things out. Maybe do a little contest and, you know, pick 3 winners or something and send them all some little nifty gift. Maybe we shouldn't have preheated. That PLA likes like 220°C, I think, is the temperature that it uses. So it does ooze like a tiny little bit while it's kind of sitting idle. We got a little bit of a blob there. Yeah, come on now, don't call me Rich. You can call me Dick. But no, I think Spike in chat said that shouldn't we be giving to you? No, man. I like just the fact that you're here in chat right now is enough for me. Yeah, I'm seeing now that I should have calibrated cold. We learned. Sorry, Richard. Come on now. I think I had every class I've ever been in school. If you take my first, middle, and last name, I've had like the longest name by far in most of the classes I've been in. Someone suggested that I give some of these Batman symbols away. Because I do have a lot of these now, because they are cool little quick prints, but I don't know. I mean, I guess there's plenty of people that would think these are cool, but I think we could make something a little bit cooler than this. Like maybe a 2-color one or something. Like if I take the file and maybe do like the bottom in orange and have it like inlaid a little bit with some of the gray or something. I don't know. Something. Someone in chat asked, do you recommend the upgrades if you get the Prusa pre-built? That's kind of a tough call, honestly. That's kind of a tough question to answer, because it sort of depends on why you got your kit assembled in the first, or you bought it assembled in the first place. If you wanted it pre-assembled because you didn't feel comfortable assembling it yourself, I might hesitate to suggest you tear your printer apart and do some upgrades to it. So in that case, I would say, I don't know. It's totally up to you. If you feel comfortable doing it, by all means, go ahead. Like there's my video, and I would assume in the future there's going to be some people that make better videos than mine about how to do the bearing upgrades. Like, I might even make a more concise video in the future about doing that. Especially if I tear the machine again apart again to do my Z-axis bearings. But if you feel comfortable doing it and had only bought a pre-assembled machine because you didn't feel like spending the time to do it, then yeah, I think it's a worthwhile upgrade. In the future, there's still some guys that'll give you flack about using these IGUS bearings with the zip ties. But in the hopefully near future here, I'm going to get some of each of the different types of IGUS bearings that are available, because there's these like gray ones that I used in my upgrade, and apparently some more tan colored ones that have a different part number that are softer. And I think those are the ones that are giving people the impression that they're crushable with zip ties and will actually cause friction. And then there's people that are using the aluminum cased ones. That Joey's saying that it sounds like the bed is vibrating. That's actually, most of what you're hearing is the freaking washer in beside the ball bearing that holds the filament. You can see it's not doing it as bad now. But I don't think my belt's too tight. It doesn't have a ton of tension on it after I'd taken it off and put it back on during the bearing upgrade. Fixer in chat suggested that I do actually make a Nillabean keychain that has a 250 on it. I think that's actually a really great idea. I could even maybe lay that out on a stream or something. That would be kind of cool. Because I've had people asking about, like, the actual process of making your own files and stuff. Which I've worked in CAD before, but I've never made anything specifically to 3D print yet. But I assume we'd basically just be laying out kind of a nifty little shape and extruding it up a little bit. Putting some, we could make it 2-color. I haven't done that yet. But I have a feeling that unless somebody comes up with a better idea, that's probably what we will be doing. That would be kind of cool for me personally to give those out to people. Someone pointed out the potential warranty issue with tearing apart your pre-assembled machine. I actually don't know what warranty they ship with, so yeah, you'd have to look into that, because if you do have a warranty, I wouldn't recommend that you void it. You know, unless you just have to have a slightly quieter machine. But what else do we have in chat here? Joey said his bed is developing a small crack near one of the center screws. That's not good. Are you sure it's in the bed and not just, like, it might just be in either the surface material of the bed, because this does heat up and cool down. I wouldn't be surprised if you have a little bit of, you know, minor delamination or something around that screw hole. And it might also just be the PEI sheet. I don't know. It's hard to say without seeing it. But yeah, Prusa, I can pull that up here again. Prusa actually has really good customer service. If you go to their site and have, I guess Flash installed, they usually have the little thing that pops up about the... watch it not pop up now. I don't know. Every time I've been on their site before, they always have the chat thing that pops up down here, where you can actually chat with a support person. Yeah, that's a newsletter. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they took it off. Maybe they're overwhelmed. Yeah, sorry, I thought I'd be able to pull that up. But normally they had the a little chat service where you can actually just talk to a tech in a relatively short amount of time. Oh, Joey's saying if you go to the shop. We'll try it here while we have a minute. Where's it at? How do you navigate? There it is. Oh, there it is. You were right. When you go to the shop tab, you can click on this thing here, And you can actually chat with somebody there, which is kind of cool. But it's really nice because you can actually have a tech on the phone with you almost instantly. I remember when I was waiting for my printer to ship, I bothered them like every day. So I wouldn't recommend doing that, but it is nice to know that you have someone that you can actually get a response from in a relatively short period of time. That's fine, Spike. That's just an old email. It's not one I use for YouTube or anything. But yeah, I think hopefully nobody here is going to hack me or anything crazy. But I'll probably go back and blur that later just to be careful. But yeah, I'm pretty cautious about that stuff. And this actually, I'll come over here so you can hear me. That actually gave me the same message I had gotten every time I've done this. That the calibration was okay, but my axes are slightly skewed. Which doesn't seem to affect anything in any significant way. And then we'll go here. Oh, this is new. Okay, so what's it saying here? Distance between the tip of the nozzle and the... Oh, I didn't read it fast enough. I'm going to have to turn the machine. Let's get it this time. Distance between the tip of the nozzle and the bed surface has not been set yet. And I guess that's what we'll do here. I guess that's one of the things the firmware added is it didn't used to give you that message. I can't... Let me make this bigger. I can't quite see it. There we go. We'll go to print from SD. We'll scroll through all the tons of stuff that I've added. And it's down in here in... It starts with PLA... Or maybe it doesn't. I think it just starts with V2. Right there it is. V2 calibration. And hopefully this works okay because I think this calibration's at 210 Celsius. And like I said, this PLA likes about 220. So hopefully this still works. Oh, is there another calibration I need to do now? There might be... Maybe I am doing the wrong thing right now. Let me turn this. This is the Live Z calibration, where while this prints, we'll pull up the Live Z adjust and just kind of eyeball it. Because you see, like, to start here, our filament's not even touching the bed, really. We'll go to approximately where we were before. We were in, like, the minus 0.5 range. And that looks about right. Looks like we're at about 0.582. And this part's really difficult to show in cam. That part's kind of hard to show in cam because let me see if I can adjust this again. What you're trying to do is just eyeball the thickness of the layer it's laying down in this test print. And let me adjust this, and then we'll move the camera. Yeah, this is going to be tough to see, so I apologize. Yeah, I don't know how well this is. I don't know how well this will translate, but you can see here when it started, the filament actually wasn't even pressing against the heat bed, and it's actually loose. And then the next layer is a little bit better. It didn't adhere very well, but it did adhere. And then as we got our setting dialed in, it actually starts to adhere to the bed pretty good. And then this layer's, you know, right where it should be for the most part. But you just kind of have to eyeball it. I think there's some images on the site that that kind of illustrate what you're looking for with that calibration, or maybe they're in the online manual. Yes, Joey's saying that there's the calibration he was talking about. I can imagine there is a better print, because that only gives you, I don't know how long that print lasted, but it's not very long. You might have like, what, 20 seconds or so to actually adjust your Z height. So even if a print was just that with a longer run to give you a little bit more time, it would be helpful. Because I think I had to run it like 2 or 3 times the first time to kind of double check. But it's probably best to run that if you have any of the PLA that came with your machine. It's probably best to run it with that, because like I said, this material wasn't extruding like it normally would at 220, because it was doing it at 210 Celsius instead of 220. So it might actually not be a bad idea, like in situations where this PLA is different than the orange PLA I have. It's probably not a bad idea to run that calibration file when you switch your filaments, to double check that your first layer is going to be the actual correct height. Because I think, since I adjusted this right for 210, when I run it at 220, it's probably going to be a little bit thinner because it's going to be coming out hotter, but that kind of is what it is. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much all for this video. I didn't know if anybody wanted to cover anything else today. I do have quite a bit of time today. Mountain Prophet asked, does my bed flex or wobble up and down a bit too? Like when you press on the front edge? I wouldn't call it play. Like, there's no play in the bearings or anything, but when you're dealing with pieces that seem to stick a good bit... Let me turn this off. This fan's loud. Oh, it is cooling down. It's not really play, but it does flex. I don't know if you can see that. When you're dealing with some of those pieces that stick pretty well, this does have some flex in it. I think it's rigid. Like, it'll go back. Like, if I pull this down with a bit of force, it always goes right back to where it's supposed to be, but... yeah, you shouldn't have anything moving. Like, if you can actually grab that and have play... like, mine's pretty firm. There's no actual, like, wobbling. So if you do have some wobble, you might have a problem in there. So I double check that, like, the zip ties on your bearings are tight, and that... another issue that I saw someone in the group have this morning was that when you put the screws that mount the heat bed in on the Y chassis that actually go through that kind of X brace shape, make sure that the thing it's screwing into is actually pulling down flush to the frame, because... there we go, silence. Anytime you have something like that that's kind of one threaded thing that has to, like, butt up against another threaded thing, you want to back your screws out, press them together, and then make sure they're threading together tightly, because you shouldn't really have play in there. And it shouldn't be wobbling. Like I said, I have a little bit of flex, but there's no noise. It's just kind of the heat bed kind of bending a little bit. Joey said, perfect after the calibration, no skew. Congratulations. I did. I don't think it's down here. I did finally pick up a. Most people I know call it a micrometer, but calipers that give you precise measurements. I did finally get a cheap pair of those off eBay, so I'm going to try to fix the slight skew that's in mine here at some point, but for now it's printing well, so I'm just going to leave it. Did I put grease in the bearings? I did a little bit at first when I had the original bearings in, and it does help with the noise. But these new, the IGUS bearings, the upgraded ones, they do not need grease, and I think grease would actually cause you problems. It's one of the advantages of them not needing greased. If you've ever had to lubricate a machine that you use a lot, one of the biggest problems is that grease will make it work better, but grease also attracts dust like crazy, and any dust you get will kind of like stick a lot worse than it would otherwise. Joey asked, regarding those IGUS bearings, are those legit ones? I guess in what sense? Like, are they the harder ones? There's if you look in the video I did about them, I put a link in that description because there's two different part numbers. Well, there's more than two different part numbers, but there are I think they're the RJMP types that are apparently soft and you can deform with zip ties. And then these are again, this is off memory, these are the RJ4JP, the ones that are made to Japanese standards, whatever that means. But they're supposedly harder. They're slightly different material that don't, like I was squeezing the hell out of them in the video I did, and they didn't seem to be deforming at all. So I doubt you're going to squish them with a zip tie. But like I said, I'm gonna get myself some of each of the different types available, and we'll do some actual formal tests. Like I planned on taking, I'll just take one of these smooth rods out of my machine, and we'll put a bearing on there, and I will zip tie it as tight as I possibly can, and then we'll see if it freely moves on the shaft still. And we'll kind of try to get to the bottom of some of these conflicting comments that are floating around about these different bearing types, because there's some, depending on which groups you're talking in, there are some very strong feelings about these IGUS bearings in both directions. Joey says that I also read that you're supposed to have some sort of compression on this type so they work correctly, like the ones in the Z mounts. What that's actually supposed to be is actually to prevent compression. Like the aluminum cased ones, the aluminum casing isn't actually to put pressure on the bearings. It's to keep pressure from being placed on the bearings so that they don't deform at all because of the kind of, I don't know what you call that shape. If you squish it, it is going to put pressure unevenly on the rod and would likely cause more friction than it's actually preventing over the base ones. But like Mountain Prophet points out, the biggest problem with the IGUS bearings with the aluminum casings is that they won't fit in the slots. Let me move it over here. They actually won't fit in the slots in the x-axis because those slots are actually perfect fits for the uncased ones. So you run into that problem. So even if you'd want to use the aluminum ones, you can't really. And someone in the original i3 Prusa MK2 group sent me a link to a file. It might be one of you guys that's here now, I forget. But they sent me a link to nifty little bearing blocks that they made for the bottom that do kind of case the bearings like these, the Z-axis ones are, where you actually have a piece that goes the whole way around the bearing and then the piece itself bolts to the Y-axis carriage. And if they fit properly, I think that's a worthwhile upgrade even if it turns out that these aren't being compressed at all and are fine. Because when I installed these, you still do have a little bit of wiggle room in that slot. Even if your zip ties are nice and snug, that bearing can still move a little bit. And just on a personal level, like, I'd feel better knowing that they're kind of, clamped in there. So I'll probably print some of those out at some point, and whenever I inevitably upgrade these bearings as well, I think I'll just tear it all back apart again, and install those pieces. Which I don't really mind tearing it down again. I don't really mind tearing the machine down again, because that would give me the opportunity to make a slightly shorter and more concise video on the replacement process. Because I know some people, streaming is nice. I like streaming videos like this, but it does allow me to kind of talk a lot, and it makes some of the videos longer than they'd really have to be if I just film them in like a conventional way. But I guess that's pretty much it for that. I'm probably going to take a break here for a little while and probably come back. We'll probably do something else today. I need to move this television, and this printer is actually going to sit back there. And I was thinking of building my cheap enclosure today, but I don't know if I'll do that. I actually have Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday to stream this week, so I want to leave a little bit of stuff to do for myself later this week. But if anybody has any ideas or any things they'd like me to show today, I guess one thing that I would like to do is, people were asking me about the process. Like, say you get on Thingiverse and you find a cool file that you like, the actual process of downloading that file, bringing it into your slicer, and exporting it to the printer. So maybe we'll take a short break for a little bit here. I'll get something to eat, and maybe we'll come back and do that, because that's actually a really simple process. The most complicated part of it for me is that I don't have, like, I stream on my killer gaming rig here, and I actually don't have an SD slot on it anywhere, so I have a shared folder on my computer, and I have to, like, put the exported G code in that shared folder, and then go on my piece of shit laptop and copy it onto the SD card there, and then put the SD card in. So we had been talking about Raspberry Pis the other day to run your printer, and I'm starting to see the appeal of that. If I'd just be able to export it over the network here straight to the printer, that would be pretty handy. So yeah, I mean, unless anybody has any other questions real quick here, like I said, we'll take a brief break here. Maybe I'll take 15 or 20 minutes. Maybe I will move my TV and stuff. My workshop's getting kind of messy. So yeah, I'll give chat a minute here. If you have any other quick questions, I'll answer them here. But we'll take a break, and then we'll come back and actually go through the process of finding cool stuff on Thingiverse and printing it out on our printers. Yeah, I'm sorry, Joseph. I know it's kind of erratic, the way I'm doing these videos, because I have to keep dropping stream to make sure that the video becomes like its own separate little entity on YouTube. But it's like I was talking in the video I did earlier, that I can now sign up for my YouTube / whatever I want my channel to be called. And I've been seriously considering just going with like Nillabean Live and kind of doing all the videos in this format where I just stream everything live, maybe with a few exceptions. But it's just like this, being able to interact with people in chat and stuff is a lot better to me for videos like this than just kind of recording things in a conventional way like I'm kind of used to doing. Francis, that should have been in my frequently asked question little segment. Are the bearings quieter? Yes, they are quieter. They are quite a bit quieter. Like in our living space today, I will note that you just ordered 100 today. Holy hell. That's, even if it's not bearings, that's a lot of, if it's Raspberry Pis, holy hell. If it's bearings, holy hell, that's a lot. Either way. But like I've said before, we have our living quarters directly above, and while the printer, it was kind of odd. The printer was quieter sitting next to it, but at the same time, it seemed like it transmitted the lower frequencies. Like if you're used to music, bass will travel through walls and stuff a lot more readily than like the higher frequencies will. And like the first, I would say 2 nights of printing, it did it did seem to transmit those lower frequencies a lot more. I know part of it was that I had my neoprene feet off that I forgot to put back on, but that's why I think I will end up upgrading my rods. Someone had suggested to me in I think a video earlier to just take these rods because they are a little pitted. I mean, it's not excessive, but it is enough to cause a little bit of friction. Is to take these rods and just put them in a power drill and use like a polishing compound and polish them up real nice and then just reinstall the ones we already have. And I hadn't really thought about that, and that seems like a pretty good idea. Maybe it was you, Joey, that commented that in one of the other videos. Oh, that was you? Yeah, I thought that was a good tip or a good thing to try. So I'll probably be doing that in the future. I guess I should try to do all those things in one day, so I only have to tear my machine back apart one more time. So maybe we'll do that all in one go. That'll be one like long day of replacing more bearings, doing some tests with the other bearings, polishing these rods up, and then seeing how it goes. And I'll also be ordering a couple different fans in the future here to try a couple different fans because the extruder fan isn't terribly loud, but the part cooling fan is pretty loud. It kind of shocks me. I think I have fans on the side of my PC case that I think are like 180 millimeter or maybe they're 210 millimeter cooling fans on the side of my computer, and they're nowhere near as loud as this little guy is. So I think that's due for an upgrade too. But anyway, thanks again. Thanks a million for stopping by. Like I said, if anybody has any ideas, I think we might have already gotten the best idea of doing a little Nillabean keychain or something, maybe a 2-color one with a 250 on it to give away when we hit 250, which if we keep going at the rate we're going, I think is going to be here before I know it. But if anybody has any ideas what they might like to see for a giveaway, probably end up giving like 3 things. So maybe 3 little things. If you see some cool prints on Thingiverse, something like that. Probably at 1,000 if we ever hit that. That would be crazy to me, but we'll give some big stuff away because I'd really like to hook somebody up with an NES, nice little NES set. If you promise to do a little video and tell me how awesome it is, but the Steve asked, it was mentioned before, is it the gray or cream bearings that we need? It's gray. I'll go ahead and type this in chat, but I'm pretty sure this is the part number. The gray ones are the RJ4JPs, I believe. Yeah, and then they're -1-08 for the actual diameters. But apparently they're different material than the MP types, so said we're gonna get some of each of them in and test them, but we'll get to the bottom of this. We'll get to the bottom of this controversy here once and for all. We'll do some MythBuster style tests on this channel here. Francis, the difference seems to be the material. Apparently the RJMPs are kind of squishy, and the RJ4JPs are kind of firmer, and they're the ones that I actually used. If you look on the bearing upgrade video, there's actually a guy that left me a comment. It was like a half a page. And yeah, he was kind of replying to all the people that are using the MP types. Oh, that's right, Joseph. I forgot you said that. Yeah, I'll try to contact you soonish if you don't mind, because if you can get them to me kind of in the near future here, that'd be great. Otherwise, I'll buy them. That's fine. I don't mind buying some, but yeah, that would be great if you can send them, because we'll get that video up here before too long. Because I know there's people that are kind of like torn on what they should do exactly. But yeah, thanks guys for stopping by. Like I said, we'll be back in 15 or 20 minutes. I'm going to grab some food, and we'll try to find a cool file on Thingiverse to pull into Slicer and print it out for everybody. So some of the people that are new can kind of see how that works. You're not just printing stuff off the SD card like I was for the first few days. But yeah, thanks everybody. We'll be back in a little bit.